You've learned a lot about writing queries. You have seen that these queries can sometimes get complex, especially when we use multiple joins and subqueries. This is where views come to the rescue. We can save these queries or subqueries in a view, and this will greatly simplify our select statements. And then we can reuse these views so we don't have to code those queries again. Let me show you. So in our SQL invoicing database, I'm going to write a query to get the total sales for each client. So let's select everything from the client's table and join it with the invoices table using the client ID column. Now I'm going to pick a few columns. So c.clientID and c.name. And then finally, let's calculate the sum of invoice total for each client and call it total sales. And then we need to group by client ID and name. Let's execute this query. There you go. So we see the total sales for each client. Beautiful. So this is a very useful query. In the future, we might have a lot of queries that will be based on this query. For example, we may want to get the list of our top clients or the clients with the least sales. Now, instead of writing this select statement every time and changing it slightly for each query, we can save this query in a view and reuse that view in many places. Let me show you. So before this select statement, I'm going to write create view. Let's give our view a name like sales by client. And then we type as. So right after as, we have our select statement. Now let's execute this statement. Now we don't see the result because here we're executing the create view statement. So this statement doesn't return result like the select statement, right? Instead, it creates a view object. Let me show you. So here in the navigator panel, in our SQL invoicing database, we need to expand the views folder. But first, let's refresh this view. All right. Now let's take a look inside the views folder. There you go. This is our new view, sales by client. Now, just like a table, we can select the data from this view. So here's the result of our view, but we can also use this view just like a table. For example, we can select everything from sales by client. Now we get the same result. We can order the result by total sales in descending order. Now we can see the top client, that is client number 5. There's so many different things we can do with this view. We can apply a filter here. So where total sales is greater than, let's say, $500. Now, one of our clients disappeared. We can also join this with any tables that has the client ID column. For example, we can join this with the client's table using the client ID column. Now we see all these attributes about each client, their ID, their name, their total sales, their address, their city, and so on. So views are extremely powerful and they can greatly simplify our future queries. Anytime we need to deal with sales by clients, we can reuse our view. We don't have to write this query, this select statement from scratch. So a view behaves like a virtual table, but remember, views don't store data. Our data is actually stored in our tables. A view just provides a view to the underlying tables. That is why we call them views. All right, now for your exercise, I want you to create a view to see the balance for each client. Call this view client's balance. And in this view, we should have these columns, client ID, name, and balance. We calculate balance by subtracting the payment total from the invoice total in invoices table. So the balance is the difference between what we charge each client and how much they have paid us. All right, I'm going to select everything from the client's table and join it with the invoices table using the client ID column. Now, I want to pick a few columns, c.clientID and c.name, and then we need to calculate the balance. That is the difference between invoice total and payment total. Let's call this balance. Now, let's execute this query. All right, this is what we get. So for each invoice, we see the client ID as well as the balance. Now we need to group this data by clients. So technically here, we need to calculate the sum of invoice total minus payment total. And then we need to group our data by client ID, and name. Let's execute the query again. There you go. So we see the balance for each client. Now let's put this query in a view. So on the top, we write create view clients underline balance as, there you go. Let's execute it one more time. Now back to the navigator panel. I'm going to refresh this view. Here we have this new view, client's balance. We can see all the data in this view. Beautiful.